Ah, there we go.
There we go.
What's up, man?
Hey,
This is
everybody.
being recorded. Everything is being recorded.
We're
in the
live
Matrix,
in a police
guys.
state. We're in the Matrix. We live in a police
You guys
state.
could literally just ask the NSA for a copy. That's a lot easier.
I have a Google Home.
You just got to go to Google or Facebook or Amazon, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, what were you saying?
I have a Google Home and 2 Alexas, so I mean,
Yeah. Joe's got an Alexa in his room.
I had someone give me a Google Home, and I literally gave it back. I was like, no, I'm sorry. It's not
not happening.
Well, I mean, James, if someone gives you a Google Home, you have to give it back. It's just common courtesy.
God, it's so horrible. Here's the funny thing, though. So this is what drives me mad. There's a bunch of Alexa-enabled devices, right, that don't have microphones and speakers and things like that, but they can. The reason why they do that, and same with Google Home, is that both of those have API. And so you can push and pull data with an API. What that means is if you had a device that was local in your home and that could connect to all your devices and everything else without using the effing internet, just a proper, home intelligence system, goes through your Wi-Fi and your LAN, that you could shut off the internet, all those things could still work. And when you want it on, you could flip a hard switch to turn it on, and it would do local text-to-speech without sending it to the Google and Amazon servers, and seek everything back through the API.
My understanding is that they use external servers to process their speech. They don't even store anything on their own servers. It's a third party.
Even
God
less
knows what
secure.
happens. Yeah, no, God knows what happens with all the shit they.
This is what annoys me, because I remember back in the 1990s, I had a text-to-speech program because I'm and it worked.
James, you are not duttara, okay? Duttara does not begin to cover some of the special things you have done.
Damn.
You might be an R, but I've never heard of a duttara getting scurvy, okay?
That is true. Although it drives me crazy because tell me, would you buy a home device that you could properly make sure wasn't spying on you with an actual hardware disconnect from the internet, right? Could still control your local home, and because it's using local text-to-speech and there's only so many different phrases, you could hire a bunch of voice actors and licensed characters and things like that to do the voices. And then you could pay, you could sell people voices. You know what? Fuck it. I want Bender to be my home assistant. I want whatever to be my home assistant. Change the name. That would be so much fucking easier. And no one's done that yet. And if you want to make $1 million, go do the idea.
The truth comes
That's a good
out.
idea.
Here's what I want to know.
People who want all the goodies.
What do you want to know?
I want to know, okay, so I was getting into a debate about guilt or innocence in certain communities. Let's leave it at that. And how would I ever prove, because I stay home most nights with my wife, and it's she's not going to be a great witness in court if I'm accused of murder. So how would I...
Especially since she'll be the victim.
Yeah, exactly.
Where would you?
I mean, statistically, that's true, right? But I was like,
True.
could my Alexa be a witness? Because it's tracking my voice, right?
You actually can call those assistants as evidence in crimes. Right now, the police need a warrant, which is good. Not that the NSA needs one or cares, but essentially, it's already been used in a few cases.
Has it? That's
including
interesting
a murder
because they
case.
claim that they don't record anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
Funny joke.
No, it's bullshit.
Files you don't have
I'm
on
not
file. Can you
retarded.
pull them up, please?
What's that? Yeah, right.
I was just saying those files you have on file. Can you pull them up, please? Yeah, okay.
No, apparently someone said something that sounded like Alexa while they were screaming and being murdered in a hot tub.
Alexa, call the police.
Pretty much. And so the murder was on tape. And the best part is that the murderer was the one who owned the house. And so the police were like, can we have access to the... It's like, no! And so they took it a warrant.
I saw a lawsuit in Australia about Alexa recording children's voices and without the parents' permission, and it was a big thing. They had to pay a lot of money. Amazon had to pay a lot of money out to the parents because of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
like
that's
Amazon
actually
cares.
probably why it's on third-party systems now. They can go, whoa, data breach? We're a surprise. Okay.
Yeah,
That's probably
could
why
be a liability thing. Sounds like Joe just came up the stairs, so he should be on any second.
What's the
Perfect.
topic
Yeah,
for
back
that?
That's some good
November.
distance to be able to go all the way up the stairs.
An Amazon Echo speaker
Speak of the
was
devil.
used. Yep, in a double murder case in the U.S. in New Hampshire.
When you say an Amazon speaker was used, did they actually beat them to death with the speaker? Because that would be amazing.
I'm hearing Eric quote court cases right now, so can you please cite it and give me references to it? And if any of the information is wrong on what you told me, you're a liar.
Here's a full
I mean, you're not
read
wrong.
out. Ask. It's in general chat if you want it.
Look, the MacArthur Murphy versus State of Illinois in 1912 on June
Suck my ass,
7th
Joey.
happened. Can you quote that? Well, it wasn't actually Arthur Murray. It was Tom Charles, and it wasn't in 1912 or Illinois. But the court case existed.
funny.
Fuck y'all.
I'd love to see that like literally in front of the Supreme Court. Ruthie baby, hear me out. I honestly hope that becomes as so active and popular that stenographers get a little button for mocking voice. Like the mocking voice button.
So have we even started the conversation yet?
No, we haven't.
win for you.
And I have a tangent that I'd just like to take. It's just due process as necessary with the internet being the beautiful creature that it is. Has Rule 34 actually taken over for Epstein yet?
Shall not be infringed.
Ooh.
Oh, wait,
Ooh.
sorry. My bad.
Speaking of
Fairly
Epstein, there
eloquent,
was
Joey.
a picture. I went and I found a study. You know how they're saying the broken whatever bone it was in his neck that
the hymen.
it can happen from
The
hanging.
hymen.
They said it could happen from hanging if he was hung if he was hung from above, but the way he was hung, it was not possible that it happened that way.
Look, all I know is
Yeah,
the
so here's-
Clintons were not involved because Hillary Clinton is amazing, and I hope she runs so I can vote for her. Hail Hillary.
I hear he's hung like a pedophile.
I went online and I started looking and I found out it was like 2004, a foreigner did a study in I think it was in New York of all of his patients over like a 3 or 4 year period. You know, it was 270.
James, I think when a coroner
victims.
does a study of patients, they're called corpses.
Yeah. But the thing is, we went through this whole thing, and he didn't find a single case in which, in a hanging, that bone had been broken. And then he went on and said, I've read reports from X, Y, and Z, who are all the studies all the news are quoting that broken during a hanging. And he says, in all those cases, the criteria they're using for broken was dislocation.
Oh,
and not
really?
breaking, shattering.
Huh.
And that he's only ever seen reports of breaking or shattering in strangulation.
yeah.
In about 43% of the cases it happened in strangulation, and then what he called throttling, which is like hands on neck, direct, and that was
I'm
like
gonna throttle your ass tonight.
God.
I think they just
What it
kept.
comes down to-
So what you're
this
saying,
comes
James?
down to is he's not dead. Number one, this is just like Tupac.
I think they just-
conspiracy.
I think they just kept Anthony Bourdain's body on ice for a couple.
That's why the nose is different, guys. That's why the nose is different.
Can I just say, that sounds like a great cocktail. I could go for a Bourdain on ice.
Look, I'm a big proponent of the Bin Laden. It's 2 shots and a splash.
You know, here's
But I'm
the thing,
Chuck.
right? You take vodka, some cranberry, and a few Quaaludes, and you got
You
yourself a
already
Bill
lost me,
Cosmo.
dude.
Vodka,
God.
cranberry, Quaaludes,
Oh,
Bill
God.
Cosmo.
Well, what about the Hillary Clinton?
Have you guys seen the Trayvon Teeny? Have you guys?
Yes.
No.
The
No.
Bill Clinton,
Okay,
the Bill
so
Clinton's a little bit
it's-
different. It's just
Arizona-
vodka and a bunch of money to cover it up.
No, the Hillary Clinton is 2 shots to the back of the head.
Never seen.
And they call it a suicide.
The worst suicide they've ever seen.
Wait, suicide? What's that? Can you just dump 2 shots on my head?
I remember a story from my history teacher in high school he grew up in not Long Island, little Rhode Island, and there was a big mob problem, And so the newspapers were reporting, and this was way back in like the 70s, on a suicide quote, right? Suicide. Here's how the man committed suicide. You ready? He parked his car at a lookout, walked a half mile into the he slid his own. He crawled backwards, so it looked like he was gagged, got into his car, rolled up the car windows, locked the door, broke the key off in the lock, threw the key down the hill, and rolled the car. Suicide.
Well, look, everything you just said is possible. Clearly, you have never seen Lawless with Tom Hardy. The dude walked like 10 miles with his throat slit. So,
dude, it helps with the airflow.
That's what I'm saying, dude. You actually become Superman when you slit your throat.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe the purpose was.
All I heard is that we didn't even need to have the conversation tonight because our man Epstein proves the Second Amendment. If he would have had a gun in jail, he would still be alive.
I'm just going to say this. Shotgun slugs in a jail cell is sort of like really intense racquetball.
Sounds about right to me.
See, I would have said that differently. I would have called it African racquetball because they can't afford racquetballs.
Here's the thing. You say that, but now all I can imagine is the cops firing off rubber buckshot in a cell just to see how many bounces.
No, see, I actually fire rubber buckshot in my ass to see how much I can take.
The answer is 1.
Incorrect. The answer is 2.
I was trying to figure out how you work the pump action with that.
Did his wife do it?
I figured it was just a side by side.
No, I'm actually pretty sure he just slid down.
Well, my ass is a chasm. All right, so let's get this started. So it's going to be a pretty... I have realized in having conversations with Eric that Eric likes to stay on topic the way Hillary likes to keep her friends alive. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much, if you guys go into the Discord, there's a text chat called Political Jargon. We're going to start off with these wonderfully, horribly written notes that Eric's going to be having us use. And then
oh God, I just tabbed back in. It's jizzing unicorns.
So basically what's going to go is, basically from what I can tell, everyone in here is for the Second Amendment except for the filthy commie Tim.
He's for the Second Amendment.
No, he's just for gun
figure
control.
We'll figure that out later
as well.
We'll figure that out. Don't presume.
Let's not jump.
I know you're.
So before we get too far with this is not an alley mugging, right? I'm not being called. This isn't a hit job, right?
Whoa,
this is a hit job. You should see everything that Eric has sent me on Facebook Messenger about how to convert Tim.
We're all planning on joining a cult now. That's the whole reason I gathered you here, because I want the cult of the gun.
Kidding? This is the deplorables. We're in a cult already.
No, that is our new Reichs, Joey. Get it right. Otherwise, you're not Führer. God.
Disrespect me one. You know what, Eric? You know what? He's gone.
Hey,
so,
Reichs come with...
So what we're going to kind of do is I am not going to be participating very much. So I'm going to get out my view really quick. Shall not be infringed. But my job is going to be to keep her on track. So if we're getting too far off on a tangent, I'm just going to kind of try to reel it back in. So with that, who wants to start us off by answering, if the majority of the United States citizens call for changes to how to deal with guns, should the government agree to it? Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, not necessarily yes or no. It depends on, like, there's no presumption that, like, whatever the majority rules is correct. So, no, if we want to, like, a general answer to that question.
Okay, great. So if not, why?
Well, because we're not ruled by mob mentality. We're ruled by principles and actual, like, political theory and whatever ethical considerations that we have, not just what people desire.
Does everyone agree with what Tim just said?
Yeah.
And legal precedents.
Another useless question from Eric.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I wrote these things.
All right, question 2. Would adding on to law enforcement... Yeah, go ahead.
Can I get a kumbaya?
Kumbaya, my lord.
Kumbaya. Namaste.
Kumbaya.
Would adding on to law enforcement's ability to seize someone's guns if they followed a due process investigation, not straight gun grabbing or actual red flag confiscation, and the result was the person was found with intent to harm, really make a difference? Who wants to take this one away?
So let me see if I understand this correctly. The person remains free to society, right? They can act in society, but they will be simply disarmed.
That is what the red
Supposedly?
flag confiscation is technically, yes. But where this question is specifically, if adding on to what law enforcement can currently do to seize someone's guns following due process, do we believe that it would really make a difference?
It depends how you define make much of a difference, because you could probably prevent, I don't know, 20 mass shootings a year, but is that worth it? That's the question.
Let me jump in on that. You actually probably couldn't prevent 20 mass shootings a year, only because the majority of mass shootings, if you look at the stats, they're basically just shooting each other.
Sure.
The current definition is 3 or more people shot within a single incident, and the incident is described as the person still walking around.
Are
it was 4 or
you
more.
racist? Are you implying that gangbangers don't have good accuracy?
I would like to make a quick correction. I believe it is 4 or more. 3 or more makes you a serial killer.
Well, so
No,
well,
so the thing has been changed. Hold on. The thing keeps getting changed, which is part of the issue of why people do this back and forth. The current FBI standard is 4. You are correct. When you look at places like Mother Jones, when they put their list together, or when the state of Australia, after the state of Australia passed their gun control laws, Australia decided that it was 3 or more. And
in 2013,
they
this was actually changed. So it was 4 or more by the FBI, but in 2013, Congress redefined it as a murder of 3 or more people.
So
murder shooting.
It's almost as if they're shifting the goal.
So if I stab 3 people, does that make it a mass shooting?
Yes.
Well, it has to be with a gun, but mass killing.
If you stab 3 people with a gun, okay,
bayonet.
and they do make bayonets.
Hold on. You joke, but the CDC actually has this problem because every year at least one person gets clubbed to death by a gun.
Oh yeah.
And so there's always
Statistics
a debate
to support your claim, please.
I'll go find it. But there's always a debate or discussion inside the CDC when they're posting their stuff. You'll find the notes on whether or not they determined that if someone's bludgeoned to death with a gun, because keep in mind, when the CDC does its stats, they're counting corpses. They're like 1 little, 2 little, 3 little corpses. And they're making piles of corpses over here and over here and over here. And so the question is, do they put it in gun-related deaths or in blunt force trauma? And that is a big question they always go over because it's blunt force trauma with a gun, which does happen. Let me find it.
So let's
this
take
question. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say let's take regular drive-by and drug-related shootings off the table. Let's just have
let's constrict it to mass shootings of civilians.
So let's say you got school shooters, you got workplace shooters, and you got guys who just want to basically murder suicide their small family.
Let's also include offensive shooters.
Terrorists.
Sure, terrorists too. That's
I think what we're talking about here is
well,
the problem is how do you separate these statistics? For instance, a gangbanger who goes and shoots up an area, you have to prove that was done for gang purposes, or that it wasn't done for gang purposes. I haven't seen a metric to prove it either way.
When you're talking about gang shootings, are you specifically talking about when a gang member goes and shoots up some place, or when gang violence happens and gang members kill gang members?
Very often it's gang members kill gang members.
However, that involves shooting up a place where innocent people get hit because, again, they're not really aiming very well.
I think that from this conversation that it doesn't really apply because you're talking about gang members who aren't following laws and have those guns illegally anyway. So
right.
It really
that's going to cover the
to
vast majority of shooters then.
Yeah. So,
correct.
So now, if we're going to use the definition, which I'm fine to do, mass shootings now goes down to a very, very, very tiny minority, almost all of which are covered in news stories, with some horrible sensationalist thing. In which case, the idea that the government being able to look in and see and seize guns without proper due process, and I'm going to use that term proper due process because passing a law saying due process now equals me waving my hands and going no due process is not proper due process.
Agreed.
So the I imagine Zimmy wouldn't, but the point is that having those sort of laws wouldn't make a difference because in every instance where they said, hey, we need this to make a difference, the person was already reported for multiple things that could have been crimes and the police never followed up. And so if the police wouldn't follow up when they had tools to stop it and didn't stop it, Giving them an additional tool to stop it would not make a difference. They already had a tool, they didn't use it.
It's a good point.
Well, you just offer a more active punishment of police departments to not uphold the law at that point.
Well, you can't. And
Well, I know
I'm wrong
that,
here,
like,
but it's
officers
sort
are
of
very much.
Yeah, and then
immutable.
officers cannot be compelled by law to act, and they cannot be compelled to arrest. Even laws that say must or shall, police officers have been. It's legally been found that they don't have to do it. So a law that says you shall arrest.
Rock v. Gonzalez, 2005. Keep talking.
Yeah,
Can you please post that in here? I want to confirm that what you just said is true.
Okay.
We need a sound cue for whenever Zimmy cites something.
Yeah, seriously. The sound cue is going to be me going, bullshit!
Shall not.
Shall not be infringed.
A mass shooting is defined by the FBI
Hold on.
as a public attack distinct from gun crimes that happen within private homes, even when those crimes involve multiple victims, and from drug or gang-related shootings. So FBI's definition of mass shooting already excludes drug and gang-related shootings.
Oh wow.
Do you happen to have their numbers for the last 2 years based on that information? And
Could you please post
drug
that
related?
as well in political jargon, where you just read that, Austin?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And keep in mind that it drug related doesn't mean not gang related. And that's something that is they very often speak in a very
but they said
precise.
drug or gang-related, both.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Okay, and that's under the definition of mass shooting header on the article I just posted.
Header.
And there's a lot more information on that page if you guys want to pick apart some of it.
I want to find the FBI's definition from the FBI, not Thoughts Co.
Okay.
I'm not telling you to do that.
Do you not
I will
trust
find
them?
it. I
Bigot.
trust them as much as I trust Hillary Clinton to not suicide me. So.
In all fairness, you're safe as long as you don't say something along the lines of "I have information." They'll put Hillary.
Oh God, where did he go?
Well, and or become president of the U.S.
We
Yeah,
lost
right.
someone.
You're pretty much fine if you become president.
It was a pleasure hanging out with you.
He's back.
Sorry, they tried to kill me.
Did the laser show up on your forehead?
No, snipers don't use laser sights. It gives them away.
Yep.
Hollywood snipers use laser sights because Hollywood's incompetent.
Oh, that's interesting what you posted here, Austin. It says that since 1982, 75% of the weapons used in mass shootings were obtained legally. Huh.
According to the FBI,
Keep in mind that that's mass shootings and not shootings.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and-
Sorry, mass shootings, it says right.
Obtained legally by the shooter or obtained legally by someone else and then the shooter took it from them. Because that happens all the time.
Right.
Well, that happens, I should say.
So anyway, let's get back on track. The question that was asked was really worded poorly, and it's basically what it comes down to is law enforcement can already do that. They can already come and take your guns on a 5150 hold,
With
and
proper
if you're found,
process.
if they believe that you are crazy, they have the right to hold you for 72 hours, and if they bring you to someone and they agree that you are crazy, you lose gun rights for 10 years. That is current law.
So then it would be superfluous, if I'm understanding.
No, it wouldn't, because the thing is that the standards for those red flag laws are usually next to no burden, and there's next to no backlash, because I believe that they're publicly initiated, and that usually what happens. Just as an example, I don't know about the law currently being proposed, but I know that in California, when they tried to pass that sort of thing, it was essentially along the lines of walking in and filing paperwork with the court, and then the guns were then taken away, and then the guy had to go and petition to get them back.
Right.
And by the way, let's say you do petition to get them back and you win. Trying to recover your guns from the police is very difficult. You are under full legal liability to prove your innocence, and you have to prove in like multiple format that you actually purchased the guns yourself. Otherwise, they will not release them and they will destroy them. This is a document.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Wasn't a couple? Yeah, wasn't a couple years back there was some dude who had his guns confiscated from him illegally, got a writ of stay that they couldn't go and melt them down. LA County said no. He sued them again, won, and just to spite him, they went ahead and melted it down, if I recall.
Yes, I recall hearing that. I recall hearing that story.
Does anyone remember that? Because I don't. have the headline memorized. Sorry, keep talking.
Hold on a minute.
Okay.
All right, no conversation can happen. He's AFK, guys.
Okay.
Super AFK.
Yeah,
You're about that
everyone's AFK
sports
now.
team?
Which
Yeah, well, they did the sport. They did the goal score.
But what it comes down to is what I think would be a better way to lay this out is because what I feel the purpose of this conversation was really it was Tim, your viewpoints and what you were talking about was really the main point that we were going to be arguing. I think the best way to handle this, and tell me if I'm wrong, is I think you should tell us what your viewpoints are, and then I'll make some bulletins, and we can handle it kind of like the cop case with Eric, where we can just talk about those specific things.
Sure, that's fine.
Cool. So
I'm sorry, I totally misheard that one. When you said I'm about to make some bulletins, I definitely thought you were going to say I'm about to make some bullshit up.
Dude, I'm not Eric.
Wow.
Definitely not Eric.
God.
Sorry.
I'm just getting raked tonight. Keep talking.
All right, Tim, hit us with it.
Well, okay, so first of all, I do believe that the Second Amendment is very significant for the establishment of, like, you know, the U.S. and the keeping up the laws, all prim and proper and whatnot. But ultimately, I think that we sometimes place too much importance on our reliance on the Second Amendment and believing that as long as we have a strong Second Amendment, other things can fall by the wayside. And
So too much reliance on the Second Amendment.
as far as like policy making and rhetoric goes, because if you have like this sense of like, okay, sure, do not infringe upon the right of people to bear arms, to be well organized and for the defense of our country, and the result of like a rogue entity that the government won't help out with, including the government being the rogue entity, that we have a means to defend ourselves against forces that would want to control us. Like there's a lot of sense in that. And there is a lot of forces in various government agencies, especially in states like California and New York, who are very big on like thinking that as long as they limit certain kinds of guns or gun accessories or what have you, then that will help out all this sort of stuff, which is not true, and it's actually pretty harmful, I think. Well, okay, according to statistics I've read, it actually doesn't make any difference, so to speak.
No difference whatsoever.
Like, at all, if you limit whatever magazine size you have or whatever type of weapon you have and whatnot.
Nope.
So they're putting too much emphasis on making sure, like, oh, we gotta feel comfortable. It's all this, like, mass hysteria that riles people up that there's this bigger problem with guns than there actually is, considering how many guns we do have and how many gun owners there are in this country. So, like, at one level, I very much agree. Like, there are elements and forces that are trying to remove the Second Amendment as a right, because they fear too many people, or they fear guns themselves, which is not a good way of viewing the whole ordeal, because it just kind of creates these kind of irrational legislation and whatnot. So, I mean, so I'm very pro Second Amendment. The thing I was trying to bring up was that I don't think that, well, I was trying to bring up a few things. But one, I don't think better enforcement of laws, because as we're kind of discussing, there already are a lot of these like red flag laws that are in place but should be enforced but aren't really. I mean, you even have the instance of what was that? It was like last year where the resource officers never intervened with the shooter at the school because they were waiting.
Yeah, that was the big one.
Parkland.
Florida. Parkland.
Yep.
Yeah, Parkland. Like that, I mean, that's a gross injustice perpetuated by the government. Not doing, saying, oh, hey, you don't need guns, we'll be here to protect you. And then, when push comes to shove,
They're not there to
still
protect you.
happen. Yeah. And to be fair, there are like, that's not like all police officers. There are those who do choose to do the right thing and they make a noble sacrifice to save people's lives.
The guy up here in Borderline shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I will say this for those poor guys too, is that, you know, everyone's a badass until everyone wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit. When bullets start flying, you get a real good perspective.
Yeah, what you're really made of.
Philadelphia.
Well, and are you actually ready to die?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one sort of thing here. So I generally agree. One thing I'm going to point out is just when you mentioned being well regulated and what that sort of stuff. People don't use the term today regulated as they used to use it. I think all of us today are sort of familiar with like political jargon where someone will say something, like a politician will say something, and we know it's like a code word for something else. The original meaning of the word regulation and regulated was to make regular or to be regular. And so, for instance, they sort of would try to pass laws saying, no, we're going to make it all efficient. We're going to make it more regular. That's what a regulation is. So the term regulation is originally that sort of thing. So I posted inside the political thing here, first book on astronomy. You click that link, it goes to a page. And they mentioned this is a book, 1830 something. And they mention a well-regulated sundial. And there's a whole bunch of other examples of this. So the term well-regulated militia only means a militia that actually works, a functioning militia. So a functioning militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people, separate from the militia, shall not be infringed. And so that's just an example there of the word regulated being used in the time period and in the way it would have been used at that time. So just want to clarify that. And then also here's a quote from a court case that I'll pull out in a second, the citation. This was the Supreme Court in their majority decision in 2018, I think. And yeah, the police have absolutely no duty to protect you, and they can sit here and watch you get raped, pull out a phone camera and videotape the rape for evidence. And that's not a crime, and you can't sue them.
Right.
Yep. Totally.
And if you're black, they can
agree with that.
participate too.
I heard it was black.
It was what?
No, if you
have to break out the
they
shade
must
part.
participate. It's not voluntary.
Yeah, if you say black Muslim, they have to help you rape them.
Yeah, shall not
A cop's right to rape someone who's black shall not be infringed.
Heyo.
Hey Ash, how you doing, man?
And he thought he was the.
You see, I saw you guys in the political.
Yeah.
So I thought,
What do you think we're talking about?
Fucking, I might as well just come and like spectate for a little bit.
There we go.
Oh, this is
It's
gonna be nasty.
dude.
It's a semi-formal.
Eric's involved, so it's not formal at all. It's just a
It's
load
a
of
black tie and
cockamamie.
flip-flop affair, okay?
Pretty much.
I mean, it got pretty rapey quite fast. That's usually what happens when Joe's involved.
Exactly.
Guilty.
When guns are involved, you never know what's going to happen.
I like my women like I like my scotch. 12 years and locked in my cellar.
Oh, I actually thought it was 12 years and.
Oof.
No, that too.
Oh,
Why not
you
both?
big scotch with coke? I'm gonna fucking come to your house.
Well, the original thing is whiskey. I like my girls like my whiskey. 12 years old.
No.
It's the same
fucked up.
thing.
You belong.
Fuck,
to
dude,
hell.
I prefer spicy hot Cheetos personally.
Fuck you.
put
You know what?
spice-
Eric's gone again.
The real question is which one of those drinks would
Hmm? Which one do I prefer?
I'm just
Did you
keeping
kick him?
Eric out of the chat for a minute.
Neither, to be honest. I'm more of a rum drinker myself.
So from what I hear, Tim, we can start with this. You believe there's too much reliance on the Second Amendment, was one of the things that you said.
Well,
I'd agree.
maybe not reliance on it, but like, I don't know how to even say
you
it.
mean people using it as a shield to justify
Yeah,
the
that could be a good way to say it because let's talk about like the fact that we have people who participate in mass shootings, like
Shall not be
particularly
infringed.
right? So that encompasses such a small minority of all gun owners. It's not even like a 10,000th of 1% of gun owners in the nation. And so the pursuit of law enforcement, or really in this case, federal agents, because this is where like they would be more helpful because they actually do get more shit done than local police officers when it comes to these kind of things. That like if they do have due process, and of course everything can be abused, but I think that is well worth catching those people because it affects the minorities of minorities, and it is an inherent criminal element to it. And so if you have this concept of like, well, we can't infringe on people's rights, it's like, well, of course you can't, but you have responsibilities with those rights. And so the responsibility having a nation that is well armed is that we have to make sure that people who seek to do harm do not participate in what everyone else is doing well.
But let me just jump forward to something, and this is something that I see commonly in political discussions, and I think it's something that needs to be explored at level, and that is that rights and responsibilities only exist on an individual level. You cannot have a collective right and you cannot have a collective responsibility. But when you say something along the lines of, if we have a collective responsibility to do this, that, and the other, and therefore your individual rights will be violated in honor of this, in sacrifice this collective responsibility, that's when you start getting these contradictions. One of the biggest problems in political philosophy that has been and will continue to be until everyone embraces my lovely, lovely Ann Capistan.
Not going to happen. Keep talking.
I know that, but I shall attempt to live perfectly in an imperfect world, and I shall fail, but I shall fail.
Go on.
The point is that there's I'm forgetting who the philosopher was, but they mentioned that it was every single political system is filled with contradictions, and for the most part that's true.
Bastiat?
And that's no, it wasn't Bastiat. But most of someone looked that up. It's filled with contradictions. Every political system has inherent contradictions. But the thing is that those inherent contradictions arise because the premises that they're based on are not sound and are not uniform. And so when you start having things like there are individual rights, but there's also collective responsibilities. Okay, well then collective responsibilities can start overreaching individual rights.
Sorry, it was Karl Marx. Continue.
It wasn't Karl Marx.
I'm serious.
No,
it's on WikiQuote.
No, because it was way before that.
Hey, Eric, turn your gain down. You sound like a drive-through.
Oh, sorry. Let me turn it down. Keep talking.
But the point is that those contradictions aren't natural or aren't inherent to reality. They're inherent to people trying to justify things that cannot be justified rationally. And one of those is collective rights and collective responsibilities, because they are absolutely antithetical to individual rights and individual responsibilities. If you want to make a coherent, I'd like you to propose a collective responsibility. No, here we go. We'll turn this into a little exercise here, a bit of Socratic method. I want you to propose a collective responsibility, and I will tell you how it invalidates an individual right.
Propose a collective responsibility invalidates an individual right.
So I will show you what.
Here.
Don't drive drunk.
So I would say every single thing that is individual counters everything that's collective. Everything that's collective counters everything. Well, there's no such thing as like what you're proposing for me to give you. I don't believe actually exists. I just don't think that's a bad thing. You're talking about contradictions and incompatibilities. That's giving a negative spin to a concept that is inherent to society at large. And we have to have a collective, and we have to have
a contradiction. We can have collective identification, sure. People identify things by put them into classes. They do it all the time. So we have this class of animal and that class. But the thing is, when it comes to something like rights and responsibilities, you cannot have one without destroying the other. When people talk about
they never existed because you need both. To say that the right is destroyed due to the collective, that means it never existed because you have to have the collective.
I'm not saying due to the collective. A right is destroyed due to a collective right or a collective responsibility. The idea of a collective is an abstraction, while the individual is a real and concrete thing. I can point to an individual and talk to them. But at the end of the day, a collective is an abstraction. And all it is the sum of the actions of individuals.
I'm going to interrupt and say that I don't think this has anything to do with the Second Amendment right now.
No, I think
It
it
actually
has everything to do with it.
It actually does. It goes to the very basis. Because if we can say that the collective peoples of the United States have a responsibility to prevent gun violence, then we have to find some sort of balancing point between that and the individual right to keep and bear arms, and the individual right to self-defense, an individual right to speak, an individual right to basically everything else. And that narrows down, this fairly abstract conversation narrows down to the basis of the problem. Because if I understand correctly, and I'm going to try to restate your point, and the point of a lot of gun control people in general, though you two may not share points, is that you believe truly and sincerely that there is such a thing as a collective responsibility. And so you're trying to balance that collective responsibility against individual rights. Is that about it?
Yes, because it's necessary. That's the whole concept of social contract that we have our whole Western society is built upon. Or even non-Western societies. Every single society that is large and robust has a fairly clearly defined social strata, and no matter how much people want that to not exist, like Marxists, there is inherent social structure. You have political leaders, business leaders, you have the common people, you have family members.
100% hierarchies and social structures exist.
It's inherent to the human condition.
My thing, no, 100%. People are pack animals who live in groups. The issue is that whether or not that pack has rights as a pack. And my point is that there is no such thing as a group right. There are individual rights.
Like the concept of the family. Well, the concept of, okay, so in a marriage context, you have like two parents and you have children. Who individually is responsible for those children? It's neither parent. It's both together as a singular unit. As a mother and a father, right?
But each one has an individual responsibility. I'll give you an example. If one of them is at work, right?
But if we're talking about abstractions,
no, I understand.
Is taking care of the child.
I understand. So let me propose this to you. If they have a collective responsibility together, right? Yeah. Then if they fail in that responsibility, they have both failed. So let's say that the deal is that the husband works and the mother stays at home because we are patriarchal and evil. Sure. And let's say that while the mother's staying at home, she kills the kid. Accidentally, on purpose, doesn't matter. Has the father failed in that, right? Has he failed his responsibility, even though he had no part in it and everything he was doing was incompletely accurate? And would you feel okay prosecuting that father for his failure in upholding that responsibility?
Well, the way we prosecute in this land would not hold the father at fault.
But would you?
Because we care about individual
Would you
rights.
declare? Would you declare that father should be prosecuted?
Would I? Well, it depends on the culture. Depends on people's assumptions about where responsibility and rights lie.
So rights and responsibility are all relative.
It's 100% relative. It is everything is a construct, even individuality, even collective identity. Why was he a problem? Because
not a problem. Wrong.
Why was he wrong? Because he destroyed lives of many people with his idealisms. So you can have constructs that build up a culture, or you can have ones that destroy a culture.
But he is the hero in his own story, and the culture at the time in Germany placed him in a position where he was doing the right thing. Subjectively, subjectively he was correct, unless you think there's some sort of objective morality that says he was wrong.
The objective morality here is that we just broke Godwin's law. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah. Technically speaking, James does.
Fine. How about this?
If we want to talk about objective truths.
Okay, but
what's wrong as well?
But Chinese culture is very, very not guilt innocence, but honor shame, which I think Tim would agree with.
It's a sociological
honor shame are all nice, but when you're on the side of the road with an AK pointed at the back of your head, it doesn't really matter.
No doubt, but if we're talking about a collective view of rights, especially with familial rights that Tim's talking in Chinese society, I'd say it's very much appropriate. Unless, of course, we want to talk about Western society where it is guilt, innocence, we are going on an enlightenment, individual rights, which would probably be more in line with what James is saying on ANCAP. We have to narrow the scope if you want your argument to work. Otherwise, Tim's got a point with collective rights in a completely different society, i.e. China.
Right, but I'm saying that if we're talking about, But if we're talking about a different society having a different set of human rights to different society, then you can't jump in there outside that society and say that they're wrong. So how
No. You can't assume. No. That doesn't work at all. Because
He's absolutely right.
Have universal conditions into which to judge all cultures and all philosophies.
So there is a universal.
Well,
there is.
So is theft universally wrong?
No. Okay,
is murder?
Why are we spending?
Depends on what you define by murder.
Why are we spending so much time arguing with a moral relativist?
Hold up, real quick, guys, if you don't mind me interrupting. Are we doing a moral objective argument here, or are we doing an enlightenment right argument here? I'd just like to specify.
Let me dive down and do the recap for everyone who's been lost. The concept is we're debating whether or not there should even be a balancing act between the collective right of, the collective responsibility of the U.S. people to prevent gun rights. Hold on. Whether or not they have a collective responsibility to prevent shootings, and to counter that, which is what his claim is, I'm saying that such collective responsibilities don't exist. To demonstrate collective responsibilities don't exist, I'm using a reductio ad absurdum, where I'm trying to get him to condemn a genocide, to not condemn a genocide, and that's where we're currently debating. So I'm throwing up genocides and saying this can't be wrong because
if we're talking about rights and responsibilities, and we're talking about the universal applicability of, then something that destroys the lives of other people through the use of force and violence is not a consideration that breaks down that argument.
Is that
only if that's universal, and if that's universal, then you don't have much of a leg to stand on saying that we can violate those, and that it's all subjective.
You said United States. We didn't talk universal though.
No,
so are you broadening your scope, or are you narrowing it?
What we've done is we try to follow. What we're doing is we're going down. I'm trying to disprove this particular by disproving the general. If that makes sense. He's saying this particular case is so, and I'm saying no case ever is so, and that's sort of the scope the argument's taken. Does that make sense to me?
Okay, but
only Jedi deal with.
If he's exactly, and I'm a Sith. The argument, Zimmy, is basically the argument structure is basically he's saying that A is a square, and I'm saying fuck you, squares don't exist. That's sort of where the thing is sitting at the moment.
Well, that's what you assume the argument is, but I'm not saying that.
Just to clarify here, the best way to convince somebody, James, usually is not to start the argument with "fuck you."
Yeah.
You're not actually allowing me to throw my point out.
Okay.
You just keep on throwing like absurdities on top of them.
How much moral relativism talk are we really going to allow here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well,
isn't that the whole point though?
It is.
No, there's obviously objective truth.
Is there?
Yeah, beauty.
I'm going to sit here and say that this whole thing about objective and relative is the entire point, and that's what it boils down to. And I give Tim plus 20 IQ points over the rest of you people who.
Okay. Well, that's not a very nice thing.
Usually James,
you're just wanting a different argument.
James, I find usually a good way to convince someone that your argument is good is not to immediately tell them "fuck you" right off the bat.
I'm going to have to give plus 10 IQ points to him because he's right.
If you give plus 10 IQ points to somebody who can always just be like, well,
10 points to Gryffindor.
It's a
hey, I've given away enough IQ points that you're arguing with a literal retard at this point. So don't even try to go.
This is an endless hole.
So far, I don't disagree.
Welcome to Four Balls Chat, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Continue.
But do you see what I'm saying? Anything you don't nail down with a moral relativist, you're going to be constantly at the whim of them just saying, prove it. You have to go forward with established objective facts. Otherwise,
it's true.
The whole point of argument and conversation is kind of moot.
And that's why I'm trying to explode this whole point that there is a moral relativism, because it ruins the whole thing. It's the foundation of this debate. It's the foundation of the disagreement.
Okay.
Unless you have some sort of sense of objectivity of what you're talking about, when we're talking about law here, like the U.S. Constitution is built around the fact that you had a bunch of different people had, but at the end of the day, they all came together. And they decided that there were certain principles that they all needed to agree upon to have civil society together. And so, of course, these sort of arguments matter in that sort of sense, because unless you figure out what those core principles are, you'll never come to agreement, especially if that is what you seek. If you seek to just argue, it doesn't matter what people's thoughts are and why they come to those conclusions. But if you really want to come to those conclusions, you got to figure out why people think the way they do, and what is it there can be common ground on, or where people can move to, so that you can actually come to a good solution.
I'm just going to drop down, although you make a very good point, and I generally agree, I'm going to drop down a citation that not everyone agreed or wanted to.
Is James the only one clipping out for me?
No,
Yes, some poor connection.
It's my wonderful $20 Target headset.
Ooh, nice. But really, when we talk about throwing out Hitler and genocide and whatnot, as far as collective response,
shall not be infringed.
Thank you.
Amen.
Joey, you are a voice of reason in this chaos.
Thank you.
Basically, if you get to the point where you no longer consider certain individuals in your care as a leader of a country as worthy of being part of the collective and being selective of who the collective is, that's when collectivism goes bad. That is always when this sort of collective responsibility falls asunder. Because if you consider everyone equal under the eyes of the law in the collective, then the individual will be lifted up. But if you don't, that's when you have issues like genocide or Mao or Stalin or whoever.
I don't think Mao was thinking about exactly what that's saying.
Or Hillary.
Thinking about exactly what you're saying.
Did someone just call Mao a Jew? Sorry to interrupt.
No, he was a dude.
Oh, dude. Okay, sorry, continue.
Thinking about what you actually said.
Weird selective, but okay.
If you flip back to precisely what you said, basically what it boiled down to is that as long as the collective doesn't violate the individual's rights, then the rights aren't violated.
Yeah.
And that seems like a concession that there are such.
Well, yeah, there are, but they aren't divorced from collective rights. So individual rights shouldn't be infringed upon by collective rights, and collective rights shouldn't be infringed upon by individual rights. They both exist.
But you also,
the fact that you also
already said, but you also already said that there is no such thing as a collective responsibility that does not infringe on individual rights.
No, I try to unpack that by saying that it's something that doesn't exist. A point where if you have perfect, that's my whole argument, is that they go together. You can't have one without the other. There's no such thing as an individual right individually. Only when a collective has individual rights does an individual have individual rights. And a collective doesn't have collective rights unless individuals have those rights that they can bear out in their own personal lives. The whole
thing, especially if we're talking about the Enlightenment, is that the individual rights are in existence and not in violation, even if the man is in isolation. If you take all the Robinson Crusoe.
Okay, hold up real quick. I hate to interrupt. I think we're making some really good points, both you are, but I do feel we're getting really off the rails on rights versus the Second Amendment. Do you mind if we bring it back?
You mean we're talking about rights instead of the right?
Right.
Rights are important, but yes. I'm down to talk about rights, but I feel more outside the scope of the discussion because, Second Amendment and everything. So let's bring it.
Well, as well, though, Eric Zimmerman really is the expert
so let's
on the
use the
Second
example.
Amendment.
Let's use the example of the Second Amendment to flesh this idea out then, all right? So we have a whole collective of individuals in this country, which has never been actually fully and equally applied in the U.S. ever. Stated, at least in theory, for every person who is able, an adult basically, can bear arms. So for the defense of their home, for defense of their land or whatever, at any given time, because no system in place is ever uncorruptible. No government will ever not turn on you eventually, even if it takes 100, 200 years or what have you. It can always happen. And down the road, you always have to have some sort of check and balance between the country and what have you. And that's why we have the Second Amendment, because we have to look to all possible scenarios, so to speak, in reasonable fashion, looking at history and how people just suck, especially those who seek power.
Yep.
And that's why we have the Second Amendment. So that sort of explanation is all about the collective, is it not? But it's also all about the individual. Like if you have to think about every single person in this country all desiring that same desire, wanting to defend their own home, wanting to defend their family, their land, their business, what have you.
But not everybody has a desire.
Well, no, but everyone has the opportunity to have that desire. And the very fact that people at the founding of this country recognize that you have to have the ability and the option there at all times is very fruitful for the establishment of this country. And so it's no longer about any sort of random individual, because if one individual had all the rights, then, you know, they could overpower everyone. But because everyone together has the same rights, collectively, they can balance each other out, or at least like have the same footing with each other. You can't describe individual rights without talking about the whole collective together, taking upon this role, this responsibility, this right, what have you. It just doesn't actually work. And when you disregard one for the other, then that is when issues start to happen.
I vehemently disagree with that. A man alone on a deserted island has the right to bodily autonomy. He has the right to life, which is essentially not to be murdered. He has the right to bear arms. He has all his individual rights are intact because there's no one there to take them away from him.
Well, that's
those
the
rights
thing.
exist.
He is the collective
rights,
at that point.
He's
can
an
make the decision. He can make the decision to have all those rights because he's the only one who needs to be in agreement to it. He has an agreement, like he has a council of one, and that council of one says, "I want to live. I want to."
Are rights then based on the majority vote? Is that how rights are determined then in the?
No, it's about saying, the fact that you have your neighbor next to you. You have
hold on a second.
People down the street.
You just said that he only has those rights on the deserted island because he is the only one there who gets to determine those rights.
Right. If there was another individual on the island,
what that then implies is that he then has that those rights. Yeah, in which case, what you have, in my view, is you have one person wanting to violate the rights of another. But in your view, it seems to me that what you're saying is that his rights cease to exist when other people don't believe in them anymore.
Well, not believe in them, but don't act upon them, right? So, like slavery is a concept that's been throughout human history, where people take away the right to liberty and freedom and everything that comes with that from different peoples. And they could do it because they have more power, and therefore, regardless of what those individuals want to do, because the larger collective, so to speak, agrees on the fact that these certain individuals don't deserve rights, they don't get them. And it's only because of that collective understanding. And then, like in the US, we abolished the concept of slavery and that sort of thinking through thinking that these are equal human beings, and they deserve those rights.
That's a practical and not a moral argument, though.
Right.
You're talking about whether it exists practically and not whether it exists morally. And those are two different.
If we're to apply that to policies going forward, would you be okay putting an unethical policy in place just because it is technically feasibly capable?
Well, I wasn't talking about the capability. I was just talking about the reality that the only reason you have rights is because the collective deems it so. And we don't want a tyrannical government. That's some one individual or a cabal to tell us what we can and cannot do. That's why we have rights and why we have this sort of social contract with the government.
See, what you're taking is you're taking, though, not a moral position on rights. You're taking a practical position on rights, in which case rights they're not really rights, because a right is something you have claim on even if everyone disagrees, right? Sure. You have a right to this or a right to that. Their disagreement is not material. So what you're saying is that the rights themselves don't exist because they are dependent on whether or not the people agree.
Correct.
It's sort of like so what you're saying is that there's no such thing as human rights, which, by the way, there's the libertarians and ANCAPs like myself are very fond of saying there are only two entirely internally consistent political philosophies, that humans have rights and everything else in the NAP, and you get the ANCAPistan, and that there are no such things as rights, and it's the Machiavelli, it's the Nietzschean will to power. And so are you sort of saying
One
that?
second. I just want to clarify something that everyone has been saying. So, Tim, what I'm hearing from you is that the collective decides the rights.
Yeah, inherently.
So what you are saying is that if a majority of the United States,
I'm not saying the government. I'm just saying like the culture, right?
Correct.
So that includes
if
the government.
Majority of the United States citizens, the people,
Yeah.
call for change and the removing of the Second Amendment, we no longer have that right. That is what we should do.
I'm not talking about the morality of it. I'm talking about the.
I'm not talking about morality. You're saying that the rights
you're
that we
saying
have
should we
are.
do it or not? That is a moral question.
I am.
Here's the question.
What I understand is that the group, the collective, the people in the culture decide what rights we have.
Yeah, they do. And the thing is, because of that, I think we should have because we have such a relativistic society, that is the greatest enemy to our rights at this very moment, because we have no agreement. In a very historical way, in the sense that because we have had it for so long, it's hard to change. Society doesn't change that fast. Because we've had a strong 200-year span where these rights have been pushed, because we've had this singular, more monoculture view about what rights should be and who should have it. And there have been some tweaks to it, but it's been fairly consistent. That because we live in this modern society right now that has more of a relativistic view on what morality is and what's right and what's wrong and about God and reality and everything, we are slowly slipping away from being able to hold on to these rights, at least in their current form. They will disappear eventually if we keep on this very relativistic society as we go on. So yes, I would say they only exist because of a collective agreement.
I'm actually going to disagree, because it is entirely an issue of practicality. The right doesn't disagree. The ability to it doesn't disappear. The ability to exercise it does. Murray Rothbard had a fun thought example and said, well, if redheads are a very tiny minority of the population, right? And if the population came to be of the opinion that redheads were massively bad luck and that you got very good luck from killing them, the public might agree and might proclaim that it is the public's right and nay their duty to kill redheads, because that makes it gives everyone a whole lot of psychic satisfaction and well-being, even beside the whole luck, whether it's true or not. And so the question is would such an act be immoral? Now, we're not talking about whether or not a legal system might get to the point where it says, yeah, it's okay, and in fact, you need to kill redheads. It's your public responsibility. We're talking about whether or not that such a thing is morally wrong, which is what I would hold it to be. And if the quote unquote rights depend on the people agreeing that they exist, they're not rights, they're privileges.
I'm sorry,
you're
James,
arguing
but
about privileges.
what you just described though is just St. Patrick's Day.
Pretty much. See, I actually put something down in the quotes here. If you go partway through here, it's a quote from a book. Professor, your words sound too good, but there's something slippery about them. Too much power in the hands of individuals. Surely you wouldn't want.
Was a harsh mistress.
Yes. Surely you wouldn't want H missiles, for example, to be controlled by one irresponsible person. And then the response is, my point is that one person is responsible always. If H bombs exist, and they do, some man controls them. In terms of morals, there is no such thing as state, just men, individuals, each responsible for their own act.
So women are people.
Shall not. The founding fathers seemed to, they thought of rights, they conceived of them as inalienable, right? That means that supersedes whatever the future generations think about this. We've established this as a species, that these are important enough for us to enshrine. So,
right. So
I'm saying that rises,
of those rights, though, right?
That rises to the level of objective.
Coming together to create these rights.
It's an enshrining. No, because the whole thing is that they agreed and believed the rights were pre-existing and were inherent. So, for instance, the Second Amendment doesn't create the right to bear arms.
Right.
The Second Amendment recognizes a pre-existing right. So, for instance, it doesn't say, because we think militias are good, everyone is given the right to bear arms. What it says is the right, as in the pre-existing right of
shall
the
not
people,
be infringed.
to keep them, shall not be infringed. And so it's
Shall
referencing
not.
So the whole point of it is that the right is pre-existing and inalienable.
Yes.
Which is what
Don't you mean unalienable?
But that only works in a.
God damn it! Is that from Darth Mistress 2?
Absolutely.
But it only works from like a rationalist Judeo-Christian background. European
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it
Post-Enlightenment.
does.
Not at all. Hold on, not at all. I'll give you an example. Hong Kong. It worked very well.
There
in
you
Hong
go.
Kong. Or their lease ended. I should
I'm just
say.
saying the Hong Kong wants Second Amendment, so
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah,
We were talking
there
about
is
this
a
one the other
British
day.
law, which we are influenced by.
Yep.
It comes from somewhere.
It
Hong
does.
Kong is Hong Kong because America is America because of Britain. Britain is the way it is
Hold
because
on
of
a
the
second.
English church and the Bible.
But 100% the case, but it doesn't mean that it's not correct. I'll give you an example. We fly because a whole bunch of scientists and the Wright brothers and everyone else got together and discovered these pre-existing rules of physics that assist in flight.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the concept and the physics that back flight didn't exist before they were discovered.
However, they
Preach,
took
brother.
the right mindset of certain individuals coming. That's the thing. You don't even attempt science unless you
broke-
have the right. What?
You broke
You
up.
broke
You
up.
broke up.
don't
So-
break up with me.
I'm still here.
Why are there
Okay.
naked cartoons
The
and unicorns
only-
in my meme chat?
Wait. That's a serious question. We need to get to the bottom of this.
You're just mad because you've never seen those unicorns before.
Fuck all this right shit.
Listen, we all have rights until they're naked unicorns in the
Oh
chat.
wait, guys, I have nudes I can post. One
The
second.
point is,
No.
We
the
could've
point is
had-
that all of us knew about the unicorns except for that gentleman over there who had never seen
Who
them before.
owns the Discord.
Never, right. Yeah, he's never gotten it right. Never saw.
Okay,
No,
but-
I just asked why there were unicorns in my chat. I didn't say I've never seen unicorns before.
See,
Would you mind posting your collection? We're needy.
Yeah, this is one that Eric sent me.
Oh God. Why?
Zimmer,
Whoa.
that is a fuzzy.
Yeah.
Oh, Zimmy,
Eric,
you knew
Eric,
what was
Eric.
going to happen when you
Eric.
said
Yeah, I
that.
should have done that. Yeah.
Eric, how do you smoke so much hookah? You need to be away from any source of open flame with that much hookah.
All right.
This is why Zimmy has to bathe 3 times a day. If he doesn't, the body oil just leaks. It's a giant wick. He's a can.
Zimmy, your new nickname is the Human Torch.
I'm going to jump in here for a second and say that the conversation we're having is really cool, and I
Way
do
off
believe
topic.
that it is a major part of what we are talking about. But what you are currently talking about is a conversation between you and Tim, and I want to hear other people's points of views as well, which might not necessarily be exactly on the topic that you have to say.
Well, okay, so
I love this.
I'll jump in. So I think there is an objective reality to the idea that any society is going to be better with free speech, free expression, right to assembly, and the Second Amendment. I don't think that's really debatable, no matter how much moral relativism you want to say.
Can you say that again? Smaller words, no more than 4 letters for me, please.
Grug, angry. No, that's 5.
Gun good,
Gun good.
happy people.
So
Shall not be
I didn't know
infringed.
the 3rd word
So,
or the 4th
Or the
word.
fourth
I
word.
heard gun good.
so, so I think
Therefore,
regardless of
Gun good, grin face. There you
regardless
go.
of Judeo-Christian society, you're gonna have a better.
Damn, Zimmy, you hot.
Fuck.
Okay, back to the topic. Talk about my naked body later.
Wait.
Hold on, I gotta look this up.
James
Damn it!
Googled it.
It gets worse. It gets much worse.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh God.
I like how you type in nude Eric Zimmerman and it says photos of nude underage girls.
What? Well, okay, first off, start with 2 ends. Start with 2 ends.
I gotta mute my mic for a few minutes, guys. I'll be back.
Yikes.
Okay, I'm done looking at nudes.
What do you
Thank
got
you.
good?
getting Caden happy right now.
No, but I would agree with you actually, Ken, because the topic, especially when it comes to rights, if we're talking, and again, I'm just going to go ahead and state my values, quote unquote, operating in a enlightenment, political as well as right perspective. If we're actually talking about where rights come from, then we have to say that it is not by human hands that we decide what I believe that James was referring to earlier, as well as Tim was touching on, are natural rights, which I would argue and contend come from outside the human condition. And I, as a Christian, would say they come from God. So then if we argue that there are in fact inalienable rights that every single person has, I think that the discussion really comes down to the fact of, in a society, which is what Tim was saying, or more specifically, let's say the founding of our country, just to keep it very specific and not so broad so we don't go completely off topic. When the founders sat down, yeah, right. When the founders sat down.
On topic?
Yeah.
Shall not be infringed.
Right. When the founders sat down and said, hey, these are the rights, these are the truths we hold self-evident, I do believe that they were deciding which specific rights they felt most pertinent from those natural rights that government should never tread upon, which I think everybody here would agree that the Bill of Rights, primarily bearing all 10 of those specific First Amendments to the Constitution, not First Amendment, just to clarify.
Yes.
Would be perhaps the most important ones that, considering everything they'd just gone through in the revolution, they didn't want trampled upon. So going back to what Tim was saying and kind of tying into where, James, you were talking about, I think you have a point, James, where you're saying that there's been a lot of confusion on where the Second Amendment right goes from, primarily due to the fact, I posted a little bit while back in the chat, in United States v. Miller, the Supreme Court evaluated...
Post this?
I'll post it again.
Was that Miller v. DC?
What year?
No, 1939. I posted it under the where. Oh God, nope. I don't want to see myself naked again.
Yeah. I also would like to know the exact date, what month and day of the year as well.
That photo was taken.
That photo was taken like 3 days ago. I got that one.
Yeah, that's
fresh. Okay. Hang on a second. I needed to add that to my folder.
No, God, why?
I'm just setting that as my phone's
right
wallpaper.
Into my I'm horny and not going to get anything right now, Banks. Turn off.
It was argued March 30th, 1939, decided on May 15th, 1939.
I'm just going to caption that cold water.
This is over 50 years old. It's not relevant.
Well, the reason why I say it's relevant, there is a point, because it primarily, in it, the Supreme Court stated...
What kind of argument is that? It's over 50 years old. That's where it's not relevant.
I know.
The Constitution is over 50 years old.
That's a damn boomer. Listen.
Ginsburg is before 2006. It doesn't count.
Right?
Okay, Alan.
RBG.
People wore powdered wigs back then. They were gay.
Hey,
listen.
Eric,
RBG is more than twice that, and she's still relevant.
But before I would like to know.
Yeah.
It's really cool to bring this case up, but this case is old, and the reason I bring it hold is in that time, are you sure there hasn't been any cases that have overturned this, changed this ruling, or is this still the current active ruling that the United States goes by?
I'm glad you asked. Give me 30 more seconds and I'll tie that one in. So real quick.
My question now.
Yes.
In the meantime, while Eric does that, I had one thing I wanted to add to his point, and it's that from the atheist perspective, mine anyway,
fair.
We God-given rights, we can just out about the human species. We're better off when we allow ourselves
acknowledge them,
collective freedoms or rights and responsibilities.
Dude, you're not an atheist. It's not true.
Oh, come on.
Which is funny because Zimmy is a
Bible thumper.
Yes.
Can someone ban him?
I want to kill myself listening to you talk sometimes.
Me?
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, if you have the Second Amendment, you can do it.
There you go.
Hey, do you know what else the Second Amendment does? It protects my other rights. You want to take away my right to talk? Boom, you're dead. I have my right back.
Real quick, the reason why I brought up the Miller case is because in it, the Supreme Court argued
that the Second Amendment was primarily seen as a collective right belonging to the states to maintain militias, with the vast majority of courts also then going and embracing that collective rights theory. This changed in 2008 with the Heller case, when the Supreme Court then argued an individual right. Individual right for self-defense. So I was saying that primarily more for James saying there is a confusion of the rights, which I do believe has been contributing to this idea of where we have the collectivist versus the individual at present. Here is the Heller case posting in there. So that was just my comment.
This is the DC versus Heller, right? 08?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know it. You love it. You wish it didn't happen.
Yep. The very
Damn it, James. It's Miller time. Helen Keller. What? Oh, yeah. So my main point that I was saying with that is I could definitely see where Tim's coming from with the idea of a collectivist right, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment, due to the heavy influence of the militia.
I'm not being infringed.
But at the same time, sorry.
I wish I had a soundboard.
Yeah, right. I can also see where James is coming from on the individual right, because the Supreme Court itself is very ambiguous on where it stands. So then I would state that we can't look. Yeah, exactly. I would state that we shouldn't look at the Supreme Court, or much less the Constitution itself, because if people want to go and get with the ambiguous terms, we have to go further back to the Federalist Papers.
Federalist 46.
Which, Joey, do you have that up by chance?
Dude, I always have Federalist 46 up.
Okay. Can you... Yeah, right. Can you go to, I believe it's the second to last paragraph, the second line, where it talks about to these would be opposed a militia amounting to something, citizens with arms in their hands.
To these would be opposed a militia amounting to proportion would not yet yield as soon as the United States Army more. How much of that do you want?
From my cold dead hands.
I'm sorry. It's further on down where it talks about how the governments are afraid to trust people with arms.
So it sounds like you found it, so you can copy and paste it yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Notwithstanding the military. Okay, holding.
You lazy.
I said, well done.
Oh, thank you.
That was not a real well done.
Okay, fair enough. So do I have to?
Can you post it?
Yeah.
Just
okay.
post it, and then you can read it if you want to also.
Okay, fine. Here.
I prefer not reading it because your voice makes me want to kill myself.
Wow.
Thanks. Can Tim read it? Because his voice turns me on.
Yeah, Tim, read it.
Like Morgan fucking Freeman over here.
You are black now, Tim. Read it. Yeah.
Notwithstanding the military establishments in the several kingdoms of Europe, which are carried as governments are afraid to trust the people with arms.
Somebody else read this, because you're cutting out.
Jesus Christ. Can none of you fucking read? Read it yourselves. Everybody be silent for 20 fucking seconds.
Okay, fine. But I think that...
Shut the fuck up, we're reading.
Okay.
Notwithstanding the military establishments in several
countries
of Europe, which are carried as far as their public resource will bear, the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms, and it is not certain that this aid alone, they would not be able to shake off their yokes. But were the people to possess the additional advantages of local governments chosen by themselves, who could collect the national will and direct the national force, and of officers appointed out to the militia by the governments and attached both of them and to the militia, it may be affirmed with the greatest assurance that the throne of every tyranny in Europe would be speedily overturned in spite of the legions which surround it.
So I would argue that it seems very clear, and this is James Madison who's penning this, that the belief in having a separate... I don't actually know his sexuality. I'm pretty certain he was married and had children.
So was Elton John, faggot.
Wow, that's a hard point to argue against. I'm just gonna keep going on. The point that I was making is, I think it's pretty clear with the intent of the founders that they wanted to have the citizenry armed to a point where they could have a, as James said, regulated militia to the point where it was working to oppose a tyrannical. Regulated. Thank you.
Well,
To oppose a government if it were to become tyrannical. Of which case, we look at the Second Amendment, and I think it makes sense that while this is a natural right of defense, I think you're correct. Yes, it becomes a collectivist right in this framework. And that's the point I'm making.
but what if I want to infringe it?
Then, technically speaking,
So here's what you do. You go to the market, you go to the gun store, right? You buy your own gun, and then you confiscate it from yourself.
boom.
Up my ass.
That's what that lady in
Wait.
Pennsylvania did.
Wait. 1 second. Don't move. I just got a call from the Illuminati. They're coming to talk to you.
Finally.
That's weird.
All right, my point's over. Back to y'all.
I am the Illuminati. Jokes on them.
Joke's on you. I don't like the Illuminati now.
They called this.
They're just letting anybody in the Illuminati.
Well, yeah, infringing individually of people's rights to bear arms would just be stealing their guns, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
it
technically.
Flag laws.
Yeah.
Look, dude, come steal my guns. Watch what happens. I may die, but I'm taking a couple of you with me.
I honestly thought that was like Tim's first point, was that people rely too much on the Second Amendment. It's like, yeah, I agree. We should be
Well,
about the other rights as we are about that one, because we're
Second
not
Amendment
going to.
itself as the construct of the reason why we have the Second. The reason why we have our rights isn't because
protects all of our other rights.
It does.
What protects our rights is the fact that the government isn't tyrannical and that the people are wary of that.
Okay, and if
The
they
rights
become
just help
tyrannical, what
establish that
protects us now?
Huh?
And if they become tyrannical, what protection do we have?
Not you with a gun, but a lot of people with guns. Because
we should all have a lot of
isn't.
guns.
Well, not individually, right? It doesn't matter how many guns you have. The government would take you out after a while.
If I have 500 guns and I have 499 neighbors.
Right. Yeah. So then
Let me word this.
it's you and your society.
Let me bring this in then, because
I give them
my
guns
God,
in my
let's go full
society?
straw man here.
I agree to these terms
To
of service.
respond to Tim's argument.
What?
Please don't let me naked. Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. On that, 1 second. I'm just going to point this out.
The
The
Vietnamese.
U.S. Army. The United States Army won every single major battle of the Vietnam War. The politicians lost that war, not the soldiers.
Yeah.
That's true.
No,
I think the guy who
soldiers did not. We won every. So the answer to that question is the whole United States Army would win, and the politicians would give up.
Except that the United States Army probably wouldn't, as it would likely be divided.
Not
Therefore-
likely. It 100% would. The United States Army would fucking fall apart.
So put it this way. The United States Army, if it even remains functional on any level, is now fighting on both sides of the war. The U.S. Army will lose.
Okay.
But
I win.
isn't
Well done.
well?
America loses, but I win.
What it
I
comes
mean-
down to is civil war is going to happen, and it's either going to make or break the United States.
Yeah, but
depending on the side.
here's Tim's whole point, and this was what I agreed with him. It's like, you think the Second Amendment is so fucking great? Boogaloo when exactly, motherfucker? Like, why don't you have a little of the energy you have into the Second Amendment on, like, I don't know, free speech or any other?
Dude, I don't give a fuck about free speech.
That's
I
like
do.
the most important right.
That's literally all you have is your speech.
Well, I
And
don't
what
have that. I
protects
can't.
that
When I was
right?
in school, I couldn't look at my teacher and say, "Go fuck yourself," without getting in trouble. Free speech
Well, that's
is already
not-
infringed upon.
That's not the government infringing on you.
Right.
I mean, the
That's
teacher
just
is a government
consequences.
operative.
I mean, you're not in prison. You're not going to be
If I
caned.
can get in trouble for what I say, then it's not free speech.
You can also get in trouble for shooting your gun at people. That doesn't mean your rights for guns are taken away.
Actually, it does. If I shoot my gun at people, I lose my right to guns.
Correct. You should. Shall not be abridged.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it should be. I should be able to kill who I please.
And
Haven't you guys heard of duels?
And then tell them to go
Silence.
fuck themselves.
I kill you.
Oh,
Yes.
hey, if it is consensual, you can shoot Howard.
I don't like
I'm
consensual
just gonna
duels.
post this really quick in political jargon. This is for you, Eric.
You've already sent me this.
I do believe the most significant right is the freedom of speech.
Oh. Oof.
I think freedom of
Yeah.
speech is probably the first right before, that is the first right to be eliminated before tyranny comes. The Second
Yeah, the
Amendment
second
is
is
your
the
last
last.
ditch. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Put
is
it this
kind of
way,
a
there's-
last ditch
there's-
effort.
There's the ballot box, there's the soap box, and there's the cartridge box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is in that order.
I think, frankly, I think,
box.
yeah,
Keep talking.
The Clip magazine box.
Dicks.
frankly, I think trying to rank or tier rights in any order is incorrect.
No,
You
you're
either
wrong.
have
The Fourth
rights
Amendment
or you
doesn't matter.
Quartering soldiers.
Which one's that?
Is that fish and seizure?
Yeah.
Wow. You asshole.
I'm having a stroke. 1 sec.
Okay, hang on. I gotta go let Nick in. I'm gonna be right back. Keep talking.
I mean, you don't have to. Leave my side.
Is Nick?
No, Nick.
no.
Basically.
I have to let the Nick in.
Yeah.
We should get Nick in this conversation. Get him
Wow.
on Discord.
Oh God, you don't want that. You don't want that. I'll be right
Dude,
back.
I want to hear that sweet New York accent going, no, we should steal all the guns from all the people. America, fuck you.
Yeah, we don't have the Second Amendment because of the Second Amendment. We have the Second Amendment because people came together and agreed that we should have that.
Well,
We have the Second
that
Amendment
because
as
a
an
bunch of
acknowledge
people
of, right.
And then we had an army too. That helped. Well, that's different.
Well, if your goal is to shoot people, armies help.
They do. A little bit.
Yes, child, laugh.
Whose kid is that?
You were saying, James, though?
That's mine.
That's Eric's kid.
Oh, okay.
No.
The only
Mine.
progressive dad in the groups.
Hey,
Scarred.
I'm waiting on.
Congratulations.
No, not quite yet. I now currently only have. Oh, actually, I can't say because Zimmy's going to be all like black.
Hey, can everybody go to this and just get to the 24-second mark?
James, are you saying yours is on back order?
Go to 20 seconds, actually.
This is Eric's uncle. Stop.
Hey,
Shall not be a friend.
There you go. Roy Zimmerman.
I
Circles.
want to make a GIF of this specific song. Do you know how to do that?
gifts don't include audio.
What
You can.
includes
You
audio?
actually can.
Oh, web.
Oh, then
You want to, and then you want to get a phone that's not an Apple, so you have an actual
Not get
phone that.
V. Yeah.
Can somebody just make the 23 to 25 second mark of him saying "shall not be infringed" a GIF, please? That's
yeah, we'll outsource it to China.
Yeah, how about you get it done right now, and I'll give you a high five.
To the face.
Good talk.
Oh my god.
What?
Song.
That's a great. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm just going to point out how absolutely worthless laws are just because shall not be infringed has been used and twisted to shall not be completely and totally eliminated in some places at some times under certain circumstances.
And you still got politicians calling for the repeal of it.
Yeah. not oddly enough, I've never heard a politician call for the repeal of it seriously through the amendment process. It's always just through the ignoring.
We should pass a law.
Executive order.
We already have a law. It's the founding law.
We should pass a law that gets rid of the Second Amendment. That's not how it works, you commie.
Yeah, but my desires to control people.
But the children. Won't somebody think of the children?
Oh, I think of them, all right.
Oh,
I believe Epstein was doing that, and they just got real.
spicy.
Think of the children.
See, it wasn't a suicide. He was just trying to autoerotic asphyxiation.
By the way,
And
did
he
you see
messed up
that?
a little bit?
Did you see that portrait of Bill Clinton he had in the fucking?
Yep. The
What the
death.
hell?
How many times Bill Clinton flew in his private jet over the
Oh,
years?
yeah.
27 times.
27.
27 times, guys.
He got frequent flyer miles. Let's be
He said he only went there 4 times. 27 times. How can you be off by 23?
Because he only remembers the 4.
It was an accounting error, guys. Come on.
Listen,
AOC said it
was
first.
23.
It was an accounting error that removed the whole issue because he thought he was going to be fucking 28-year-olds, not 28-year-olds. Very.
The stewardess asked him if he wanted peanuts, and he misheard penis.
Talk about in-flight service.
Well, I know we've been throwing a lot of things around, but
But I love you guys.
if I were to, I love you guys too, and I'm really glad we could all like sit down and talk.
You're a bunch of faggots.
I can't wait for the
And-
sweet embrace of death.
Good.
Alrighty then, there's a lot of conflicting ideas.
California drains my soul.
Come to
Try Oregon,
Tennessee with-
motherfucker.
I don't know how to serve, James.
Why are you in California? It's like the worst state.
I know, but my work here is I'm stuck here.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Because where we have all the people who get their eyeballs knocked out.
Try Oregon. At least you guys have Disneyland and the beach.
No, see, we have these restrictive gun laws which don't stop people from shooting each other's eyes out, so I have a lot of eyeballs to replace.
Oh,
Oh, that's true. How many gun-related eyeballs have you had to make?
A few dozen.
Wow.
Probably more than that, but yeah, it's not horribly uncommon. I mean, violence is about a quarter of our business. Eyes lost through violence. And guns are, usually we don't get a lot of stuff like shotgun and rifle. It's usually pistol.
Yeah,
For those cases, usually they need a box or a full facial prosthesis because they take a bit more with them when they go.
dude.
But I've treated a guy with a shotgun wound to the head.
Speaking of eyeball,
That's impressive.
What was it to the back and was Hillary Clinton?
No, actually.
Bill was.
It was to the front, and so you could actually see his brain.
Oof.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Kind of gnarly.
No, see, I had a great joke, but I forgot the name of the senator who shot as. Oh, never mind. I got changed it. Yeah. So Dick
Cheney's
Yeah,
what?
Dick Cheney.
Cheney's.
Yeah.
oof.
Guys, I can't figure out how to save my gift.
That guy just got peppered with a little bird shot. That's all. That's just foreplay.
Actually, just on the side topic. Speaking of peppering with birdshot, so my boss is.
Are you trying to make peppercorn shot shells?
Woo! No, so my boss is a crazy motherfucker and wonderful, and also his net worth starts with a B, which is insane. And so he had a charity function and a bunch of no, so he had a charity function where they released a whole bunch of pheasants as a big charity pheasant shoot. And so he and his buddies stood on 2 separate towers in one of his fields in his side yard because it was big enough. And people stood at 58 stations all around in a big oval circle. And they would throw out pheasants, and then you try to gun the pheasants down as they leave. And since they're on the towers, they just got peppered with birdshot from something like 300 different shotguns over the course of 4 hours. Apparently, it was beyond insane. He's like, no, yeah, you got to get up there. You got to put like a rag down over your face, your eye protection. And every once in a while, just an arc of birdshot just goes.
Yep. I've been hit before. I've been hit plenty of times. What's really cool is actually the sound it makes as it's coming in.
I love this. Great video. That's a great. Can someone make a 10-hour loop to put on?
I am making a 10-hour loop right now.
So I know we discussed a lot of things tonight, but I guess what I'm seeing here.
We haven't discussed that many things tonight.
Well, we discussed.
All I'm hearing is that Tim's completely changed his point of views, and guns are good, and fuck black people.
I don't know about that
That's
last one.
all
I don't think.
That last one is actually very, very, very pro-black community.
Yeah, that just makes more of them.
Just more of them. So if you don't fuck black people, how do you get out of this position?
In fact, there's a whole section of the porn industry devoted.
We've broken Eric.
No, my views haven't changed at all. It's just the whole subject is complicated because I don't think
What it sounds like to me, and
properly.
Tim, yeah, well, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. What it sounds like to me is that you think, as a practical matter, the issue of gun control is a matter of balance between the welfare of the population and their responsibility to keep each other safe, and the rights of the individual and their ability to defend themselves, and that the issue isn't a matter of absolute rights one way or the other. And that seems, I mean, it's a popular position, and it's a very practical position. I disagree with it, but it's not exactly bad. Is that about your position?
Yeah, pretty much describes it fairly broad strokes.
Tim, we respect you. We just need to inform you that you're completely fucking wrong. No.
Have you heard about this hero called Vox Day?
Tim for the win.
Aaron, that sort of we respect you sounded like that. Of course, baby, I'll respect you in the morning. That's what that was.
Money's on the dresser.
So I guess to summarize then, I know not necessarily saying everybody should have the same view, but I don't think that we respect the Second Amendment as it is, but maybe the damn it, James. Maybe
He was bringing it home.
Hey guys, I made a 49-second version, and it's pretty amazing.
This conversation is never ending. It's gonna be one which shall not be infringed.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is that since we already have due process laws that can confiscate guns in place, and anything past that technically would be superfluous and doesn't really change the fact that if someone wants to get a gun, they can kill someone.
I mean, they don't even need a gun to kill someone.
Wow. Yeah, what a concept, right?
Well, I think the order of importance of like gun laws is on the top, CCW, just reciprocity across the country. Basically, as long as you have the ability to buy a gun and you're a little adult, you should just and of any kind in any sort of way. I think that should be the top priority. Then beneath that, I do honestly think there should universal background checks, just to catch all the crazies who shouldn't have guns, like someone who has already committed gun violence. What?
How many times have those actually worked compared to the 80% of guns that are used in crimes being acquired illegally?
Considering that we have multiple systems that don't talk to each other, and it's not consistent across the country, they are very much hampered from their ability to actually be useful.
Right, but here's the thing is that the background checks themselves, right? Just making everyone go through a background check. One, already we have that in California, and it doesn't help. Two, the people not posting to the system are still not required to post to the system.
Right.
Or even if they are required, they're simply not doing it. The problem is that the problem is that our system is
compel them to is the issue, and
right.
and the people don't post. They don't post. You can't make a law to make them post, and so they won't post. And then the issue of making background systems that are different talk to each other is something that the executive branch can do. Doesn't need a law. It just needs them to actually tie their freaking
just scratch it together. Sure.
Well, and
then
that's
why I say it's not as high priority, because if you have people who are able to carry, like concealed carry and all sorts of stuff, as the highest priority, you mitigate the dangers of people slipping through sort of background checks, right? Because you always have people who buy guns who shouldn't be having it.
With the carry part, the advantage that having a gun illegal goes way down because you're no longer the only person armed.
Right, exactly. And that's why I say that's the highest priority.
My argument,
because these
though,
other
is,
ones have limitations that are
Right.
fixed by having people carrying guns around who
I
are
think-
law-abiding citizens.
I think there is still an issue, though. If someone is too unsafe to be trusted with a gun, why are they out in public? They can get their hands on any other mechanism to do harm with. If there's
Because
a
the
threat,
FBI statistics looking at the past 20 years for all 50 states show there's an 18% reduction in all homicide across the nation when you have universal background checks.
according to a study that was done by one guy, I'd like to see that replicated. It was a
It
study
was
that was one
replicated twice
guy.
among the FBI
Well, here's,
and
here's
looked
no, no,
over
no, no,
by
no.
a third-party organization.
He compiled, right? This guy was, trained in Berkeley. He compiled two two sources of information, and then he
Homicide
adjusted.
rates, death certificate.
Right, he adjusted for, demographical and societal issues,
Right.
and then condensed it down to what he claims are law-only reasons, and I find that incredibly suspect. It sounds like
the issue is
the numbers and fudged them.
Yeah, well, the issue is when you start trying to control for that stuff, you can do a lot. I mean, let's keep in mind, if you wanted to say let's infringe on a few people's rights to protect the majority of people, it's not a popular like statistic to point out, but it's something like 2% of the population commits almost half of all violent crimes in the United States, and that would be black males
Popular in
between the
this
ages of
group.
15 and 25, and or 27, one of those two. And the thing is that just because that's where a lot of the crime comes from does not mean that that we can just violate the rights of everyone that fits that demographic.
Well, and
those people have rights until they commit a crime.
And to that point, that statistical analysis with the FBI data showed that in urban situations, background checks aren't all that useful, and CCWs are. And in rural areas, it's the other way around, where you don't really have much need for CCWs because people don't care and you're in a rural area. But background checks actually have a much higher rate of reducing gun violence in those areas.
Just one of the things to confound, because I remember reading a study like that, and I don't know if it's the same one you're looking at, but one of the issues is they compared CCW licenses and things like that. And I'll tell you right now, just having moved to Tennessee, there's a lot of people that concealed carry in rural areas without a license because they.
No, that was my point.
Yeah, and
they don't care. They don't care about any sort of laws. They just carry, and there's nobody really to check them on.
Right, but
I actually had a friend in California whose dad, you'd never guess it, because the dad was literally a chiropractor who was New Age medicine, all that sort of weird shit.
Travis?
And every time he picked, and any time that guy picked up his kid from school, he wore a fanny pack, right? And until that guy passed away, I did not know. Every single day he came to school and picked up his kid, this New Age hippie was carrying a .38 super automatic.
Yeah.
Illegally in that.
Is that the FBI knocking?
Because it sounds like it. Because he's dead now, so leave him alone. But the whole thing is that he was like, it's my right.
Yeah.
F you. And so it's hard to account for things like that and people like that because those sort of things can't be tracked.
Every state's an open carry state if you're not.
Unless you're walking to Walmart with 100 rounds of ammunition about a week and a half.
I don't know
Holy crap! You guys just missed it.
What?
I just popped a zit like in my groin area.
I wouldn't say I
by
missed
squeezing it, and
Okay,
it
that's
launched
called
like
busting a nut.
7 feet across my room.
Yeah,
we heard
here's
it.
the best part. Did you start playing in that general area before or after?
Look here,
Why does it
motherfucker.
always come back to me?
Because you're the only one with a nude pic in this thread, man.
That's a fair point.
Hold on.
Wait,
If you have a zit on your dick, you have syphilis.
Eric,
If I have-
you are officially the thread cam whore.
Oh God. To be fair, Joey coerced me into putting pick up and then decided to save it.
Bullshit.
I can go and post the chat from where it
Yeah, you
previously
can.
was.
This sounds like some sort of gay lovers triangle that I just don't want to be a part of this.
Coerced you into posting nudes? Are you dumb?
He said I'm in the bathroom naked, and I said proof blocks. And he posted. That was it. I just said proof. There was no coercion, you lying fuck.
In my defense, I'm kind of
He
retarded.
wanted to post nudes.
This is Zimmy's version of the story right here. This is Zimmy's version.
Well, Eric, is your father proud of you?
Oh God, you know as a fact that there's some things he's very proud of me on. Other things where he looks at me and goes, "Why did I ever have children?"
You know that sounds nothing like your father.
Yeah, I know.
It sounds enough that it's hilarious.
Right?
I showed you my dick answer. Dude, oh my God, Austin, it hurts so bad. It was an ingrown hair.
Ooh, those are bad.
So,
yeah, I had one of those like a month and a half ago.
It was like right above my dick. And it was just like so bad. And I saw a little bit of the hair peeking out. So I grabbed some tweezers and yanked. And it was like, then I squeezed and dude, it launched.
I'm free.
It was like one of those videos when you squeeze and just goes.
Well, yeah, you get it in slow motion. You get that.
Let him finish.
So I'd like to point out that I just posted up a picture of John McAfee's Twitter picture, and it has JoJo's in it.
John McAfee is amazing.
Oh, hey,
He's
in
a
case
wonderful.
you guys wanted this, I'll post it one more time for you.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Hey, is that your ringtone yet?
Yes, actually.
Oh, that's beautiful. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. Next time I'm getting romantic, I'm gonna try to put this. See how fast.
Hey, awesome. You should send this to the fatty. See what happens.
Nothing.
Oh. On a lighter side note, since we've all bonded here through our mutual love.
Shut the fuck up, Eric.
Wow.
We don't want your socialist kumbaya stuff.
I was gonna say we could all use this chat to game and interact with each other, or James, I could even add you to the group chat if you really want.
Eric, this is not a damn gay bar.
It's not a gay bar. I'm just saying.
Guys, what video games do we all play? Let's play one.
I don't come here to
Conqueror's Blood.
I came here
Squad would
to
be
fuck.
fucking sick with everyone here.
Dude,
That's
this
what
would
I'm
be the
saying.
greatest game of Squad ever. It would literally just be eating crayons the whole game.
Wait, squad?
Yeah, dude.
What's squad?
Oh, dude,
Newest
it's
hook.
it is a it's the most accurate milsim game currently on the market.
The squad.
Squad.
No, yeah,
It's
squad.
actually on Humble Bundle right now for dirt cheap too.
Seriously?
$12.50. I think.
Just $12.
Just
Are
12
we
bucks.
all getting this?
I already have it. I've had
it's
it
a
for
group
years.
Hey, so Aaron, you've played Postscriptorum, right? Or Postscriptum?
Oh, scrotum? No.
Have you played that? Okay.
My
darn.
scrotum?
It's like that. No, so Squad is like
It's
like
a little pussy right now.
that came out, but is
So you haven't
anyway here.
wiped the ropes off yet?
Fuck no, dude. They're so kinky.
This is Squad right here.
Cup or something?
Absolutely. Then I'm gonna have my wife lick them off.
Oh. Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Did it come out in 2015?
It's been out for quite a while. It's a Battlefield Bad Company 2 mod.
Turned.
It's essentially like Arma, except not as jittery and insane
No,
because they don't have an entire set of
The
mechanics.
original game was literally Battlefield Bad Company 2 mod. That was what
Yeah,
it originally was.
Right, but this is a
And now-
standalone game now.
Correct.
Yes, this
And
is
now-
a standalone game.
And it's awesome. And I hate when I'm driving a car and someone's like, "Ooh, I know,
Dude, let's get it in play. Get it in play right now.
Well, hang on. It's showing me it's $40. You're saying
No,
there's a
no.
humble
Go to
Humble Bundle.
humblebundle.com.
Oh, okay.
It normally is $40. That's what I'm saying. It's only $12 on Humble Bundle right now. I bought 2 copies because it was so cheap.
Did you buy the second one?
Yeah, I bought it for the second account.
I will say though, one of my favorite parts in this game is that they actually have the proper RPGs explode at 1,000 meters, which is what they're supposed to do with range.
That is supposed
And
to be
I have used
950
that.
meters.
Fuck you. Point is, they exploded a really long freaking
I thought
way.
it was 947.4 meters.
No, that's inaccurate. Maybe on the
Fake news.
Chinese ones, and they jip you out of a few yards, but
Dude, but no, this game,
They're chipping out a yard.
Eric, this game is so intense. It is 100%. If you don't communicate with your team, it's great. I played a game 2 nights ago where our group, we knew we had lost, so our squad drove to a corner of the map, and we started talking about pulling crayons out and eating them. And one guy was like, "I want the orange crayon." Then another guy went off on the other dude. "Now I get the fucking orange crayon."
No, that's awesome because the buildings are all
Fucked up.
like well sized.
Oh.
The vehicles are all great. There was one match I was playing. I think it was my first day playing, and I was playing as a sniper unit, and we go and take this territory. Enemy pushes through and takes it back, and I'm sitting on the top floor of this building, like, oh fuck, I'm all alone. And I actually survived for a good 40 seconds after I pulled the trigger the first time, and then everyone fucking SWAT and was clearing the goddamn building. It's like, what the fuck?
Wait, so this is a subscription service?
No.
It's a one-time payment, and you get to keep all the games for this month. But you can get it for the month, the next month as well.
You can't cancel the subscription after you pay.
So, like for example, the $12. If you look at it, you can see August 2019. For the $12, you got all 8 of those games for that $12.
Oh.
So, like June was Call of Duty Black Ops 4. You got Call of Duty Black Ops 4, Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered, and all those other games for $12.
That's pretty fun.
And you can actually choose how your money is spent. I have 100% of my proceeds go to the charity. So like August's charity was the Covenant House. Comic Relief USA Red Nose Day was July. The Call of Duty Endowment supporting soldiers was June.
Oh, that's really cool.
And a full 35 cents was purchased, went to those.
You actually get to choose the percentage. So on average, 74% goes to the Humble. Like 18% goes to that, and a little bit goes to charity. But you can switch it 100% to charity if you want.
Jesus.
So that's what I usually do.
Yeah, fuck you, Humble.
Okay, hang on. I'm grabbing it right now.
What do you
Wow,
grab?
this is so much better than the Epic Game Store.
Yeah, right.
And if you are a Humble monthly subscriber, you also get 20% off everything in the Humble store, which is every game ever, just a little bit cheaper. So you get even cheaper than that. So for example, No Man's Sky is $26.99 at 55% off for them, but I get an additional 20% off of that because I'm a Humble Bundle monthly subscriber.
Oh, that's really cool.
If anyone likes Gears of War, also, if you scroll in the, I think it's general chat, I posted where you can get Gears 4 for $4, which is fucking great.
You know, I never played 2, 3, or 4. I played the first game and was like, this was okay, and went back.
I just finished playing the 4th one for a little bit today, and I really, really like it. And for $4, it's worth every dime.
$4 and 132 gigabytes free on your hard drive.
The other option is if any of you have an Xbox Gold membership, you can get it free with Gold today as well. On your.
This is really cool. Thanks for the heads up.
And then just because you guys came late, but this is the other game you guys will have to start playing when it comes out. Watch it.
I don't get it. Hey, is anyone going to be getting GTFO?
Nope, waiting for sub.
Get the fuck
gotta
out.
get GTFO.
All right, guys, I actually have to hop off because
Same.
Oh, you're
I have
not
to
gonna
go
play
do
squad.
a massive
Fuck it.
dump. I might come back and play, but probably not. I have to
Take
go
pics.
do my
Don't worry.
massive. I will see you all later. And,
James,
guys are on tomorrow. I'll hop-
James. Can you answer one quick question from me? What would be a good twist rate for a 20-inch barrel on 5.56? I know you did this research, and I was wondering what ones were you looking at?
For me, I'm going to get the 1 in 12.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Don't want to overspin stuff.
No, because it has a hard time shooting the what's that? I think it's 1 in
The
12, 1 in 15.
62, right?
It's the original twist rate. So the one, not
Right.
the original, but the original published. I think it's 1 in 12 or 1 in 15.
I think it's 1 in 12.
I
That's
think
the
it's 1
common
in 12. Yeah.
Because 1 in 12 had a hard time stabilizing the 62 grains, was it?
Yeah, it has a hard time with the heavier bullets because it's too long. But the thing is that under 100 yards, you're talking about a wobble that's about 1 MOA, and I don't intend to use heavy bullets. And if I do, I can't imagine when I'd be shooting it in another rifle 100 yards. And also, I want mine to look like an old fag. So I'm currently saving up for a beautiful, beautiful upper by TNTE sales, $700. I have the lower and everything else, and it will look just like fucking beautiful, like the M16 A1 version 604 by.
Did you ever manage to unjack that lower with the pin in it?
Nope. But I have another lower that's already loaded out.
Ah, okay. Very good.
Faggots. Guns are
See you
bad.
guys.
Okay.
You going night-night?
Now something we can
Good night.
agree.
Enjoy your crap.
Look, Tim, we both know that you're.
Wanna
I
pillow?
can change your name from Kowalski to the only real liberal in the group.
Wow. Good talking to you both, gentlemen, and have a good one.
Before you leave, look at this. Look at this. This is what I'm doing.
It looks gay. This isn't fucking Vietnam. Get a real magazine in there.
Oh,
Pussy.
come on. That thing could apply for a CNR permit.
20 rounds. Actually, it can't because the lower I'm using is the.
Did you just take that photo right now?
No.
No,
That's
no,
a
no,
stock
no.
photo.
It's a stock photo. I'm building
Well,
one
actually,
to
it's
look
the
like
whole
that.
rifle, not just the stock, but.
Give me just.
No, I'm trying to get. Let me pull up the upper here. I'll show you this. This
It's a
upper
really
is so
bad
good.
photo, but I just took a slight photo of my gun safe. Probably gonna get suicided by Hillary, but it's alright.
You have a
You're
safe?
going to get accidented?
It happens.
Yeah. Get to know Hillary and suicide.
Getting to
Only
know
if you piss her
you.
off.
I'm just gonna put it in political jargon because why the fuck not?
Hey.
Because everyone else has already used the channel for everything.
I can't even tell if you can see it all. No, it's a really bad
Nah,
photo.
it's a really shitty photo.
I'm seeing 4 long guns and a couple pistols.
Let me
No,
just
you're
open
seeing
it
a
up
couple
and tell
pistol
you.
mags.
Not enough.
There are 3 pistols, an M1A1 carbine, M1 Garand, 3 shotguns, a AR-15, and a couple 22.
How many arms do you have?
Hey, hold on 1 second. Aaron, Zimmy, how many single barrel break action 20 gauge shot?
I have 13 guns.
Haha, I beat you. But do you know how they both
He
got
lives in
that
California.
single?
I live in California with 13
well,
guns,
here's
though,
the
bitch.
Do you know how they got their break action 20 gauge single?
You.
Yes. And by the way, 4 of the people who got those shotguns never owned guns before. Beautiful.
Who?
Essentially, all my wedding party. I was like, fuck.
You bought your entire wedding party
That's fair.
shotguns?
And then
Yes. It was a shotgun wedding.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then Aaron, it wasn't, but then Aaron did the most beautiful thing and put together the most beautiful ever first time in history created sport.
I still have your balls.
Shotgun croquet.
Hey, so James. So I really feel like we've connected tonight, and I feel like I would have been a groomsman if we knew each other then. So I feel like you should get me a shotgun.
You are more than welcome to pick up a cheap, disgustingly horrible, low-priced shotgun from Turkey. Let me go. Actually, let me find. Well, what was that damn thing called? It was a cheap ass gun too.
Is it California legal?
They called it like the Poofta or something like that.
Dude, go get me one, dog.
It's made out of pure Chinesium.
Dude, I'm gonna send you.
Hey,
you know
it's
what?
Turkish.
That's what we're gonna
Turkish
do. You send
Chinesium.
me that. I'm gonna send you what I got every one of my groomsmen.
What did you
AIDS?
get every one of your groomsmen?
A really
AIDS.
nice watch and a
nice.
Glencairn.
Very nice.
Nice.
Sorry, what were you saying, Ken?
AIDS?
8?
Kids.
Wow.
All right, I'm out.
Gift
Fuck you
everyone
guys.
can appreciate.
All right.
Dude, black people have done so much for our community. They've built the railroads. They've picked our cotton. Like they've been so good to us.
That was the Chinese.
True Americans.
You know,
Right?
I can actually make a very, very strong economic argument about how slavery hurt the U.S. and is one of the biggest economic.
Yeah, because we had to get
very
rid of
much
them.
so.
It didn't though. No, but the thing is it's actually funny. If you look at Rome, this is no joke. Slavery is one of like most people are like, oh, slavery's bad. I hate slavery for all the reasons all the liberals cry about and go, really? That's why you hate slavery?
Dude, I was
So
pro-slavery.
you look
Bad for the economy.
No, if basically, but if you look at ancient Rome, right? They invented the steam engine. They had a steam engine in Rome, and they never developed it to do anything. They never developed it to do anything because slave labor was so much cheaper. It stayed as just a sort of weird, like, ooh, cool curiosity.
Yep.
And without slavery, we might have had the Industrial Revolution about 1,000 years earlier. And think about what technology would be 1,000 years more advanced. And that's slavery that stopped it from that. You do not have your genetically engineered cat woman for domestic ownership because of slavery. And that is a crime against humanity. Although the Chinese are actually now literally developing human-animal hybrids in testing, not bringing them to term,
Okay.
but it is the
Okay,
first
Alex
step
Jones.
towards-
No,
No,
that's
that's actually true. That's actually
chimeras!
No, I know it is. I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
It's just something that Alex Jones talks about, and it's really funny to
They're
hear him
stealing the
talk about.
babies.
The truth is, the frogs were gay from the.
All right, guys. I feel like we're missing the point, so I'm going to post something to bring us back on track real fast.
Oh God.
I know.
You know what it is.
Shall not be infringed.
All right, gents. Well, it was nice chatting with everybody. I
Yeah,
hope
this was productive. We got nothing accomplished.
that's the whole point. That's what I wanted.
It's funny.
Hey,
Eric.
wait,
Only we get
Oh, we need
Congress to hit that.
Oh my
same-
God, are we Congress now? I feel so powerful.
No, we got more done than Congress. We're ending on a good note, and we like each other.
Right?
I'm gonna run over some people in my car.
So,
Make sure you dump it.
Buckle up, buckaroos.
I'm good. Right.
I'm gonna
go
get
ahead and
disallowed from Israel.
Ooh. I'm gonna go ahead and try to download the squad thing. I'll let you know, Joey, when it's done, and then we'll see about it. Yeah. Wow. It was a game he was talking about in the Humble Bundle that he wanted to play earlier.
Oh, you weren't here for it. It's
No.
a really good milsim game. It's normally like $40 or $50. It's on sale for $12 through Humble Bundle, and the money goes to charity.
Nice.
So you should get it too.
And if anyone's ever watched My Hero Academy, the last picture is for
Oh
you.
my gosh. All right, man. See you later.
See ya.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Hi guys, Media Shadow here. I'm trying to grow the channel and hopefully get more than one video out a week. So if you like what you've seen, please give me a like, subscribe, share, or drop me some coin on Patreon. I've left a link in the description of the video. Thanks!